away on a summer holiday, you'd want to go somewhere warm, but not too hot. Somewhere where you'd know you'd been away, but you wouldn't have got sunstroke. Somewhere just right, the sweet spot. Equally, you know when you're filling up a car with petrol and you're looking at how much money you're spending and you get it dead on zero. Not a penny under, not a penny over, just right. The sweet spot. Well, this is the Porsche 911 GTS. And all that anyone seems to be able to say about this car is that it's the sweet spot of the 911 range. It's bang in the middle in almost every respect, and it is quite possibly the perfect all-rounder. Well, today, I'm going to find out if it is.
You see, over the last year or two, I've been a very lucky boy indeed. I've been able to spend some time enjoying the base 911 Carrera, the entry-level 992. And at the other end of the spectrum, I've honed a Turbo S around on track and sampled the legend that is the GT3. Rear-wheel drive, all-wheel drive, manual, PDK, basic, fully loaded. I've been there, driven that. So hopping into the GTS, I should be able to explore what it means to be the sweet spot in the 911 range.
So what do you get with the 911 GTS? Well, it rather depends on what you want, because you can have it as a hardtop, a convertible, or as a Targa. You can have it with all-wheel drive, you can have it with rear-wheel drive. You can have a 7-speed manual, or you can have an 8-speed PDK. This is a hardtop, 7-speed manual, rear-wheel drive. Lovely. At a basic level though, you have a 3-litre twin turbocharged flat 6 with 480 horsepower. And for reference, a base entry-level Carrera has 380 horsepower, a turbo has 580 horsepower, a Carrera S has 450 horsepower, a GT3 has 510 horsepower. This could not be more in the middle if Porsche tried. 0 to 62 miles an hour takes 4.1 seconds. Not that I'm going to be doing that today because the roads are filthy wet. And with a PDK, that goes down to 3.3 seconds. And the top speed is 193 miles an hour. Just listen to it though. Sometimes I wish there was a little bit more howl to it in the rest of the rev range, not just at the top end. And actually, once you've experienced a GT3, once you've rev one of those out to 9,000 RPM, everything else doesn't feel quite so special, but still, it's a lovely engine. You've got lovely whooshes from the turbochargers, the rush of air. It's quite similar in sound actually at the top end to a 911 turbo. And actually, there's more noise in here than there is in a Carrera or a Carrera S. You could get sports exhaust on both of those, but in the GTS, not only do you get the sports exhaust, but there's less sound deadening at the back as well, so you can hear the engine that bit more clearly. It's a lovely noise. An observation, in terms of performance, a base entry-level Carrera will get to 62 miles an hour in 4.3 seconds. That's largely because the Carrera only comes with a PDK box, you can't have a manual. Now, does that matter? There's such a fine gap of performance, 4.1 for a manual GTS and 4.3 for a Carrera? No, I don't think it does. 4.1 seconds to 62 is plenty quick enough, we need to remember that. And also, this is so nice. So much more engaging to have a manual rather than a PDK. I would take a manual nearly every day of the week.
What's noticeable too is just how much low-down grunt the GTS has. More shove even than the GT3. The GT3 has a very respectable 470 Nm of torque, but the GTS, with its 2 turbochargers, dishes out 100 Nm more, a beefy 570 Nm. So where you've got to wait until 5000 RPM for the GT3 to really pick up, the GTS starts to wind on speed from as little as 2300 RPM. On a damp, cold road, it really does get your attention. And using the GTS day to day, it does make the experience that little bit easier, not having to change gears quite so often to make progress or overtake.
The next big talking point for the GTS is the suspension. The GT3, as literally everyone who's driven it has said, including me, has independent suspension at the front end for the very first time on a 911. That's what sets it apart from the Carrera and the turbos. This doesn't have that, but it is different to a Carrera. Porsche has taken the suspension from the turbo, tweaked it a bit, and slotted it in here. There's the sport chassis, which drops the ride height by 10mm. You can get that on a Carrera S. But there's a bespoke Porsche active suspension management setup. There are different anti-roll bars. There are stiffer springs. Most importantly though, there are now rear helper springs to keep the main rear springs under constant tension, to give you better control when you go over a bump. The result is a chassis that just feels more tied down, more competent. It's not that a Carrera S or a Carrera is bad by any stretch of the imagination, but it just feels that little bit tighter.
Like the suspension, the brakes are influenced from above too. The discs come direct from the turbo and measure 408mm at the front and 380mm at the rear, with carbon ceramics available as a £6,300 option. By comparison, a Carrera S has 350mm discs front and rear, while the Carrera has 330mm discs. To say they are strong would be an understatement, while the feel through the pedal is exactly what you'd expect from a Porsche. Spot on. The wheels have also been lifted from the Turbo S, with centre lock 20 inches up front and 21 inches out back.
And the gear lever? Well, why not just leave it as it was in the Carrera S? Would have been easy, wouldn't it? For Porsche's engineers to look at everything else they'd done and just go, do you know what? Good job. Let's leave it, let's go home. But they didn't. It's 10mm shorter. And because it's a 7-speed rather than a 6-speed, a la GT3, this car is such a comfortable motorway cruiser. Living with it day to day, going up and down the motorway a little bit, it just relaxes. Because in 7th gear, 70 miles an hour, you're doing 1800 RPM. The engine's hardly working, it's not stressed at all. If you're looking for things that are the same, the steering is as it is in the Carrera, but that's fine by me. It's weighted beautifully, it moves around a little with the road, it's nice. It's just nice.
Finally, there's the way the GTS looks. It might not have the same in-your-face presence as the GT3 or the intakes of a turbo, but that's no bad thing. It's a simpler look and to my eyes all the better for it. The GTS also comes with the Sport Design package as standard. A near £3,000 option on the Carrera, it sees the rear number plate move up on the cars behind, black side skirts added, and at the front a new face, with 3 distinct portions to the intakes rather than what looks like one on the Carrera. I really do think this is the best looking 992. It has presence without being in your face. It's gorgeous. The interior too is lovely. There's race text upholstery dotted around, like on the steering wheel and in the centre sections of the seats, simple GTS stitching on the headrests, and the driving position is bang on.
It seems like a bit of a cliche, to be honest, to say that this is the sweet spot of the 911 range. But when you spend time driving it, you can totally see what everyone else is on about. The Carrera is lovely. The 911 GT3 is a brutal, physical, brilliant monster. And sitting between those two in terms of power, performance, price, everything really, is the GTS. But I don't think those things make this the sweet spot. They make it the middle child. Now what makes this the sweet spot, more so than any GTS that's come before it, 991 or a 997, is that you can't spec up a Carrera S to get close to a GTS anymore. You might be able to make one look like a GTS, but you're not going to get the same power, you're not going to get the same brakes, and you're certainly not going to get the same suspension. And like this, manual, rear-wheel drive, it is properly good fun. This is a sweet spot.